Lucas hadn't planned on working that weekend. He had promised himself some time off. No cameras, no editing marathons, no watching couples say, "I do," while he stood behind a lens pretending not to feel anything. His calendar was cleared, his gear packed away, and he had envisioned a weekend of silence, of long walks by the harbor, maybe even visiting the antique bookstore downtown that always smelled like cedar and dust. But life, with its usual irony, had other plans. The call came on a Thursday afternoon. It was Jack, his friend and fellow photographer. Jack had been scheduled to shoot a wedding that Saturday, but the flu had hit him like a freight train. His voice was barely more than a croak over the phone. "Please, Lucas, I already talked to the bride. She's fine with the change. You'd be doing me a huge favor." Lucas hesitated. Not because he didn't want to help Jack, but because he knew what weddings did to him. They stirred up a nostalgia he tried to keep buried. He took a long breath. "All right," he said. "Send me the details." And just like that, he was back in. One weekend, one favor. One more love story to shoot and forget. The wedding was set in a picturesque vineyard estate just outside Charleston. The kind of place where time seemed to slow down, where the vines wrapped around aged wooden beams, and the air smelled of lavender and oak. The bride and groom were college sweethearts, both teachers, both glowing with that soft kind of joy that only comes from deep-rooted companionship from the moment he arrived. Lucas slipped into work mode. He moved like a shadow, as he always did, capturing candid smiles, spontaneous laughter, stolen kisses. There was comfort in the rhythm of it. Frame, focus, shoot. It kept his mind quiet. He had just finished photographing the flower girls as they twirled in their miniature dresses, their giggles echoing through the vines. He turned toward the bridal suite, planning to catch some behind-the-scenes moments. The final touches on the bride's makeup, the bridesmaids sharing a toast, the mother fastening a necklace with trembling fingers. And that's when he saw her. She was crouching down, laughing gently as she adjusted the hem of a little girl's dress. Her hair was pinned up with strands escaping like curls of sunlight. Her profile was soft, familiar, unforgettable. The sound of her laughter struck him like lightning. Isabelle. 10 years, 10 whole years. She hadn't seen him yet. Her focus was entirely on the child beside her. Lucas stood frozen, camera hanging uselessly from his neck. He didn't know if he was breathing. The girl looked up, a smile lighting her face, and Isabelle followed her gaze. Slowly, instinctively, Lucas. Their eyes met. The world didn't spin, didn't tremble, it simply paused, holding its breath with them. She straightened, her expression shifting from surprise to something deeper, awe, hesitation, and something like sorrow. Her voice came out soft, almost uncertain. "Lucas?" He managed a nod, a small smile tugging at the corners of his lips. "Hey, Is." It was like hearing a melody you hadn't realized you missed until it played again. She took a step closer. "I didn't know you'd be here. Last-minute fill-in. A friend got sick." She glanced down at the child, then back at him. "You look older," he chuckled. "So do you, but in a good way." Her smile was soft, almost apologetic. She bent down and put a hand on the little girl's back. "This is Lily." Lily looked up at him with wide green eyes. Eyes. Just like Isabelle's. Lucas knelt slightly, offering her a gentle smile. "Hi, Lily." She gave a shy wave before tucking herself behind Isabelle's leg. He looked back up. "She's beautiful." "Thank you," Isabelle said quietly. There was a pause, heavy but not uncomfortable. "I didn't expect to see you again," she said. "Me neither." The rest of the day passed in a blur of controlled chaos. Vows, laughter, a breeze that tousled the bride's veil at just the right moment. Lucas did what he always did, found beauty in motion, framed emotions with care, kept himself out of the story. But now, the story was bleeding into his reality. Throughout the weekend they orbited each other like planets drawn by gravity yet held apart by invisible force. Their conversations were brief, casual on the surface. But their eyes always said more. "How long are you in town?" he asked once. "Just until Sunday night. I took some time off." "You still in London?" "No. I moved back a couple years ago." He wanted to ask why he didn't. At the rehearsal dinner, Isabelle sat across the room surrounded by laughter. But Lucas could feel her gaze, find him now and then. It was like hearing an old song on a scratched CD. Not perfect, not new, but beautiful in its familiarity. That night, unable to sleep, Lucas sat on the porch of the guest house. Crickets chirped in the distance, and the air was thick with summer. His camera rested beside him, memory card nearly full. He scrolled through the images one by one. Then he saw it, a candid shot of Isabelle laughing, her eyes bright. Her shoulders relaxed. She hadn't noticed the camera. It was perfect. His thumb hovered over the delete button. He didn't press it. The next morning was calm, the big day. Vows would be exchanged, champagne-spilled shoes kicked off on the dance floor. Lucas woke early, dressed and wandered the vineyard to clear his head. He found Isabelle walking along one of the dirt paths, Lily skipping a few steps ahead, picking small wildflowers and tucking them into the folds of her dress. "Mind some company?" he asked. Isabelle turned, smiled, and shook her head. Not at all. They walked in silence for a while. The air was soft with morning dew. Bees buzzed lazily in the vines. "I read your name in a photography magazine once," she said. "Yeah? I always wondered if it was you. It probably was." She looked at him sideways. "You made it," Lucas shrugged. "Some days it feels like it." She stopped walking. He did too. She looked down, gathering her thoughts like fragile paper. "I'm sorry, Lucas." His brows furrowed. "For disappearing," she said. "Life got complicated. I was overwhelmed. And then I thought maybe it was too late, that you'd moved on." Lucas didn't speak for a long time. The breeze shifted gently between them. "I never stopped wondering what happened to you," he said. She nodded slowly. Lily called out, waving a daisy, and Isabelle smiled. But when she looked back at Lucas, the weight returned. "Do you hate me for it?" "No, I just wish I'd known." They stood there for a long while, saying nothing more, but something had changed. A crack in the dam, a chance. That evening, the reception glowed with string lights and soft jazz. Lucas moved through the crowd, capturing joy in motion. But his heart wasn't in it anymore. It was elsewhere, stuck between a past never resolved and a present begging for answers. As the night drew to a close, he returned to the empty reception hall to pack his gear. The music was fading, the lights dimming. On top of his camera bag, he found a folded napkin. Her handwriting was unmistakable. "If there's still something here, meet me tomorrow." Train station, 6 p.m. His heart pounded in his chest. He read it twice, then a third time. The napkin trembled slightly in his fingers. That night, sleep never came. Lucas arrived at the station early. The afternoon sun filtered through the glass canopy, casting long shadows on the concrete floor. He paced slowly along the platform, heart thudding with each passing minute. The napkin remained folded in his jacket pocket, its creased edges worn thin from being held too tightly through the night. He had spent hours imagining what he might say. A dozen versions of the same conversation played out in his head, some filled with emotion, others cautious and reserved. He rehearsed lines, discarded them, and settled on honesty. Whatever this was, wherever it might lead, he knew he had to face it head on. When the clock struck 6, the sound of an arriving train echoed in the distance. Lucas stood still, every nerve tuned to the moment. Passengers stepped off, a man in a suit, a woman with shopping bags, 2 teenagers laughing about something on a phone. And then, there she was. Isabelle stepped onto the platform, her hand gently clasping Lily's. She looked up and found him instantly, as though she had known exactly where he'd be. For a second, neither of them moved. Then she smiled. Lucas exhaled. He hadn't realized he was holding his breath. They walked toward each other, the space between them dissolving in a few steady steps. Lily skipped slightly ahead, tugging Isabelle forward. "Hi," Isabelle said softly. "Hey," Lucas replied. He looked at Lily. "Hey again." "We brought snacks," Lily announced. She held up a paper bag triumphantly. "For the train." Lucas looked at Isabelle. "So, you're not just passing through?" Isabelle shook her head. We're not going anywhere, I thought. Maybe you'd walk with us and talk. Lucas nodded, something warm unfolding in his chest. Yeah, I'd like that. They exited the station together, walking along the cobblestone streets toward the park nearby. The town was quiet on Sundays, the storefronts closed early, and the air filled with the scent of magnolias. Lily walked a few steps ahead, humming to herself, skipping over cracks in the sidewalk. You seem happy, Lucas said, glancing at Isabelle. I am, she replied. Not always, not perfectly, but I have Lily, and now, this. I kept waiting for a letter that never came, he said. I know, I started writing so many times, but nothing ever sounded right, so I said nothing. They reached a bench by the lake and sat. The water shimmered gold under the late afternoon sun. Ducks glided lazily across the surface. Lily sat on the grass nearby, opening her snack bag and sharing crackers with a squirrel. I kept that last postcard you sent, Lucas said. From Amsterdam? He nodded. It said, wish you were here. Everything would be better if you were here. Isabelle sighed. It was true. They sat in silence, the kind that felt full instead of empty. I want to be part of your life, she said finally. Not just in old memories or photographs. Lucas turned toward her. Then be part of it. I don't need everything figured out. I just need to know you're here. She smiled. I am. He reached for her hand. It fit perfectly in his, as if no time had passed at all. In the months that followed, the pieces began to fall into place slowly, gently. Lucas and Isabelle started seeing each other regularly. Coffee turned into lunch, walks turned into dinners. Lily, always curious and bright, took to Lucas almost instantly. He read to her at bedtime when Isabelle was tired. She asked him endless questions about cameras, fascinated by the way he could freeze magic in a picture. Isabelle published her first children's book that fall, inspired by Lily's curiosity and her own rediscovered love for storytelling. Lucas photographed the cover. They celebrated with a quiet dinner in, pizza and candles and soft jazz playing in the background. There were bumps, of course. Old wounds reopened, fears surfaced. But every time they hit a wall, they talked, they listened, they chose not to run. One rainy Saturday, Lucas found an old box in his attic, letters, photos, playlists burned on scratched CDs. He showed them to Isabelle, and together they revisited their teenage years through faded ink and remembered songs. We were such dreamers, she said, holding one of the letters. Everything felt so possible. Maybe it still is. And it was. A year later, on a warm spring afternoon, Lucas stood under a tree in that same vineyard where it all began. Twinkle lights sparkled between the branches, and soft music floated through the air. Lily ran through the grass in a pale yellow dress, twirling as flower petals fell around her. Isabelle appeared at the top of the hill, her dress simple, elegant, her eyes fixed on him. This time there was no camera between them, no lens to separate him from the moment. As she walked toward him, Lucas felt every chapter of their story settle into place. Not perfect, not without pain, but real. They said their vows with laughter and tears. They danced barefoot under the stars. And later, as the night quieted and guests departed, they sat together under the twinkle lights, her head resting on his shoulder. You still think some stories are meant to pause? She asked. Only long enough for the next chapter to begin. And theirs did.
The end.